So this is a tutorial on how to use the OpenShot video editor to make promotional videos for your website and for YouTube. So the first thing to do if you don't already have OpenShot installed is to go to openshot.org. If you just search OpenShot, you'll get this as the first real result. And this is the home page, and you just click download. And then this should be the right one for your system. But if you didn't get, this one's Apple because I'm on a Mac, but you should get Windows here or Linux. You can also click down here to choose the one you want, but you would just click here to download, let the download run, and then run the installer, and it'll install the normal way. So I already have that installed, so we'll just get going here. So I'm going to open OpenShot, which will be in your start menu or on your desktop if you selected that. We'll give it a second here to do its opening. All right, so this is what OpenShot looks like when you first get into it. You haven't made any changes. Now, the first thing I like to do is actually to go up to, where is it? Here. Yeah, so for me, it's an OpenShot video editor preferences. If you're on Windows or Linux, it might be under File or Edit even, but preferences is here for me, so I'll open that up. And I like to go to cache here, or cache, and this should be, for you, should be like 250. I recommend setting this up to the limit of what your RAM is. And if you don't know, something like 2000 would be a good basis. You can go up to 4, or I know that my RAM is 8 gigabytes, so 8,000 megabytes, and I'll set that there. That allows you to edit much more quickly. Now, if you do get some issues with it crashing or slowing down a lot, you may want to turn that number down. But for me, I know this works, and this makes it quite a bit more convenient. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is go find some video that I want to edit. So you can, if you record it on your computer, you should just have a file there. If you record it on a cell phone or on a camera, you would need to transfer it over either with USB connection or with through the SD card. But here I've got a folder with a bunch of video in it. So let's take a couple of these files. I don't need all of them, but maybe these 3, and just drag them over. And now you can see they are in the project. Now, OpenShot can also handle almost any kind of other, media file that you would want, so videos or audio. So I'm going to go to my downloads here and see if we can find something else to throw in there. So here's I'll show you the folder itself. So I got a bunch of stuff downloaded. So here's a photo. I'll just drag that in. And then I think I've got some music here. Oh, that's a MIDI. That's not going to work. Let's see. Royalty-free music. That's perfect. So then we can drag that in. So we got music, we got video, we got photos. That's pretty much anything you're going to want to use. So just drag and drop it in there. Now, before we get too much farther, I'm going to note that you can actually adjust by clicking on these dots, the size of everything. So if you want this bigger or that bigger, and you can accidentally move or get rid of all kinds of stuff. So if you want to, or if you end up getting a spot where it doesn't look like this, like let's say we, yeah, so actually I've already set it to be frozen, which is what I was going to recommend. But so by default, it comes like this. So you can actually drag and move things around if you want different stuff in different places. But most annoyingly, you can also click delete, and then these things are gone. So if you do get a spot where you deleted something you don't want to be gone, you need to go up to view and then choose a view. And the one that comes by default is simple. There's also the advanced view, like this, which you can use if you prefer. I'm going to just go with simple view. And then what you can do to lock it once it's in a place that you like is just freeze view there. So view, use, freeze view. And that makes it so you can still move the size around, but you're not going to delete any windows, which is nice. When you accidentally get into the thick of editing, you can accidentally delete stuff pretty easily. So up here, we have all the stuff that we can throw into the project, which includes the files that we did, transitions, which I don't recommend you use much, but they are here, and effects, which there's a few useful ones in here that we'll look at, and then back to project files. Over here is just a preview of what you're actually making. So you can see the videos as you edit it, and then here are our tracks. So each track is like a layer of video, and you can put audio in these as well, but the layering doesn't matter for audio, but for video, the track on the top is the one on top of the view. So let's just pull a few things in here and I can show you what that means. So let's say we pull in this first video, we want to edit it. I'll stick it here in the middle because that gives us the most flexibility, and I'm going to make sure that it's already, or all the way pushed to the left. Otherwise, you'll get blackness like here at the beginning of the video. So that's 8 seconds of blackness. We don't want that. So move that over. Now we have a video file. So you can move it around as I've been doing by dragging this teardrop type thing on the top. And then you can also press spacebar. Now it's playing. So a few basic things you might want to do with a video like this. Let's say you want to edit the length of it. Well, you can just go to the edge, wait until it gets the double left and right arrow, and just drag it over to where you want it to come in. And the same thing at the end. So you can shorten it down at the end here. And you can see as you're dragging, it's showing you the last frame of that video segment. So if we wanted it to come out there, now if we drag this all the way over, we can see what we've done. So it came in the middle of this clip. And if we go towards the end, it cuts out right as that the girl comes on screen. So you can always drag it back if you want a little more. So there that is. And let's say we want to pull in our next clip. Well, we can do that by doing it here. So now we have a straight cut between the two. So I'll go drag this over and we can press spacebar to preview. Bam. So it just cuts straight to there. So a lot of editing, you're going to want to do just straight cuts like this. But sometimes you do want more of a fade between the two. And to do that is fairly easy. You just grab the one to the right and drag it over, and you see it's overlapping. And the distance it's overlapping is the distance of the, the length of the fade in time. So if we put it way over, we'll get a really long fade. So now it put a blue box indicating that there is a transition there. Now let's see what it did. Now it's starting to fade over, and I did it quite long, so it's pretty slow. Now you may notice, partially because I'm recording, but this happens on a lot of slower computers as well, is that it's actually not playing back at full speed. It's going slower because the computer actually has to calculate, what the fade is doing, and this happens a lot of times when you're doing transitions OpenShot. But what you also notice here is this thicker, like light blue bar. That indicates that this is an area of the video that's been pre-rendered out. And that's one of the things, or this is the reason why I had you change that setting at the very beginning. So now if we go back, it's been pre-rendered, so it will play back at full speed here. So it may or may not be easy to see, but it is playing back at full speed now. So if you have issues where you're not seeing it play back full speed, just play it through once, let it go slowly, and then drag it back. And anywhere in this darker blue bar, you will get full speed playback. Now let's say I don't really like how long this fade is, which I don't. One thing to do is actually, you can use this bar across the bottom here to help zoom in. So I'm going to go towards the plus side. And now we get a little more control over what we're doing because we can see it bigger. And then I'm just going to select the blue thing, hit delete, and then drag this back over, maybe to about half as much there. So now it made a new transition, so we can play that through again. And you see it's actually filling in the cache as we go, but we're not getting quite full speed in the middle of the transition. So it's a little difficult to gauge if it's as fast as we want, but we'll let it render out. So now I made it, and then transition's going full speed again, so we'll drag this back, and now we can see the actual transition as it would look if it were finished. Bam, there we go. Looks pretty good. Okay, so let's say we want to do a little bit of background music or some background sound effects now that we've done that. One thing we can do is just drag this sound here onto any of the tracks. The sound doesn't matter. And you notice the sound or the audio is way longer. So one thing I could do is drag this back, go to the end, and drag this back, piece by piece, or zoom out and do that. Not the greatest way. Another thing you could do, but easier, is go up to here and choose the scissors icon, and then you get like a blade, and then put the blade, click it where you want it to be cut. And you don't have to be super accurate with this because you can always drag it to the exact spot. So then now that I've done that, I'll go back, click it again so that we're no longer in the blade mode. I can click on this and hit backspace or delete on my keyboard, and now it's gone. So that's a lot easier way. Like if let's say you have a long video too that you've edited and there's mistakes in it you want to cut out, and maybe I've got a longer one here to show, like this. So let's say I made some mistakes in this. One thing I could do is go to the spot where the mistakes are, There we go. It's taking a bit to figure out what it's doing. Maybe I'll just put this on the end so it makes it a little faster to render for just a demo. But so let's say I'm going through this and okay, I know that I don't want this black stuff at the beginning. So I can go here and click about there, right? So now I know that I don't like that. Then I listen through, I'm playing through. Oh, that was a mistake. Well, the mistake starts here. I'll cut there, play it again. And then now I get to the part that I do like. Click again. Give the computer a second. It's a little more slow than it normally would be just because I'm recording at the same time. Come on. There we go. I hear my computer fan speeding up. Video editing is a pretty processor intensive thing to do. So anyway, you could go along like this and keep editing as you want to edit. And then you know that pretty much every other thing you don't want to do. So I'll go back, click off this, go back to the pointer mode, and then go, okay, I didn't like this part, I didn't like this part. And then you need to make sure to drag these over, and it does help you by, come on. That was a little weird. I couldn't move it for some reason. What I'm doing is just deleting it and then doing Control Z or Command Z for undo, and that unlocked it. Strange things, you get it sometimes. But anyway, you move those together because if you leave any space in between them, like actually I think there is a bit of space here. I didn't get it all the way over. There will be some black frames, which you don't necessarily want. Well, maybe not. Yeah, there's a little bit there. So if I drag it all the way over, then it ends up, and you see the little bar. So work a little nicer. So anyway, that's a nice tip for making editing quite a bit easier. So now we've got our audio, and let's drag this over to cover the rest of this video. Like that. Good, so let's say this is edited pretty much the way we want. We've got the video, we've got the audio. One thing we might want to do is actually have like a nice fade in and out of both the audio and the video. So the easy way to do this is just right click on each clip as at a time. So we'll start with the audio, and I'll go to fade, and I'll do entire clip. And you can choose fast or slow. Fade in and out, I'll just do fast. I think that works well. And then you can see the time with these little green bars where the fade in and out starts and ends. So that's pretty good. So we could listen to that. I don't know if it'll play. Not sure if you can hear that. It's pretty soft, but there it is. So it fades in and then it fades out at the end. Now let's say we didn't like that one, we wanted to go with the other one. The thing you need to do is actually go to fade, no fade first, and then go to fade. We can do entire clip and slow. So that gives us a much slower fade in. And you can see by the placement there too, it's slower. You don't want to just go straight to the new one because it actually does like multiple fades on top of each other, which is usually not what you want. Although it is an interesting effect that you might want to use certain times. But so we can do the same thing with the video here. So we can do a fade. Now this clip only is at the beginning, so we'll just do start and we'll do another fast fade in. You see there's a little, maybe it's a little hard to see, but there's a little green line there. So now we can see the results. So it fades from black. Drag this all the way back, show you again. Fades from black. Now we can do a fade out. Again, go to the one at the end of clip, fade out fast. Now we can click over there, watch it do its fade out. A little choppy because it was rendering. There's at full speed. Cool, so this is pretty much the basics of what you need to do any standard YouTube type video. So I'm going to show you how to render it out for upload to YouTube or to your website. And then I'll go in and add a few extra special touches to it that you can do to make your video a little fancier. So to render out, what you need to do is, well, the basic of it, you just click this export video. But first, let's take a look at the choose profile setting, just to double check that you have the right thing, which is a little film icon. So depending on the resolution of your video, if you have 720 recorded video, that's the default. So HD 720p, 30 FPS. That's a good default to choose. That's what a lot of things record at now. Now you may be recording at 1080. So that's also another option. If you do know that you have 1080, I would recommend using that. Now it's a little, you kind of have to know what you're doing to know exactly what FPS you're using. And it's best to match as close as you can, but the most common is actually 30 FPS. So if you don't know and it's difficult to find out, just choose this and you'll be okay. So 1080p 30 FPS is a good setting. Otherwise 720p 30 FPS. Those are both good. So I'll just stick with 720 on this one. And then now that you have that set, you can go to export. And so there's a lot of options. You really don't need to change any of them. I would just choose a name. So we'll call this test project. By default, it's going to put it in my home folder. I'm just going to choose browse and go to desktop here so that we can find it more easily. And then by default, it exports it as H.264, which is exactly what we want for uploading. So we'll just leave it as it is. If you know what you're doing, you can go in here and change quite a bit as far as the encoding stuff, but 99% of the time, you're not going to need to do any of that. So we'll just leave it as it is, go to export video, and let it do its thing. So I'm going to pause the recording here because this does take a few minutes. It can actually take longer than the length of your video, depending on your computer, to render this out. So if you have an hour video, it could take an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, depending on the speed. So this won't take too long, but I'll do a quick pause here, and then I'll come back with it done and show you the rest of what I'm going to show you. All right, we're back. The rendering is 100% done. It took about 6 minutes, 42 seconds on my computer. So we'll hit done here, and I chose to have it go to the desktop, which is over on the monitor you can't see. So I'll just double click on the project here. So it's called Test Projects, as I set it to. And here's a sample of it playing. There's the fade out at the end. So that's good to go. Now that you have a file on your desktop, you can just upload it straight to YouTube the way you normally would. So now let's go into a few of the more advanced things that you can do using this software. Let's get back to this. So let's say, let's find a good spot to do this. Maybe there. So let's say you want to overlay an image that the audience can see next to you on the video. That's pretty easy to do with this software, and this is why I left some tracks above. So let's say we want this photo to go up as part of the explanation for what's being said. So let's drag it here on a track above, and you can see it comes in over the video file below it. Now, by default, it goes in the center and it fills up the screen as much as it can. So depending on the aspect ratio of the image you put in there, you may not even see the video below at all. But we can adjust that. The easiest way is to go to right click and transform. You can also use Command or Control R to go in that mode. But now you can see there's little blue boxes on this that allow you to adjust it. And in the center, there's a circle. So first we can move its position. Say we want it like over here. Seems good. This. And then let's say we want it a bit smaller. We can drag and drop any of these blue ones to make it so. Now, if you just drag and drop by itself, you can actually squish it and flip it around, do whatever you want. But usually you don't want to change the aspect ratio of images 90% of the time. So what you can do to fix that is hold Shift when you're doing it. And you can actually, Control or Command Z to undo that. So now let's do it again by holding Shift first. Is that not doing it? Oh, sorry, in this software, it's actually Control that you hold. So Control keeps it at the 1 aspect ratio, and it doesn't allow you to squish it. So that's the way to do it. So I'm holding Control or Command on Mac, and There we go. Now we can drag it around again. Now I did this partially incorrectly to show you one issue that does come with the software. And what it allows you to do is actually animate. So because I was editing it here at this point, you'll see it put a green thing. And what that did is cause an animation. So it started out in the center and then it moves it over. So that is maybe something you want to do. And now let's say, pause this again. Let's say we go over here later on in the clip and move it over here. That. Now if we go back to the beginning, we'll see it animates over the left, then immediately animates over to the right. Now it did leave those boxes there because we were still editing it, so I'm going to go right click again and transform. Oh, did it took a second? Yeah, so the way to get rid of it is to just hit transform again, and it should get rid of those controls. For some reason, it wasn't doing it immediately for me there, but so now we have that animation going. Now, a lot of times you don't want to do that. You just want it to be in one spot. So the way to do that is let's undo this animation. We'll do no animation. And that just brought it back to its original spot. So the way to make it so it just stays in one spot is actually edit it at the very beginning of the clip only. And one easy way to do that is just to click I was hoping that these buttons did it, but the easiest way is, oh, actually this button does. Yeah, okay, so those are the ones. So the easy thing to do is just click on the left one of these. So if you're somewhere in this clip and you have it selected, click the left arrow with the line, and that takes you to the very beginning. Now if we edit it here, so if we do Command or Control R, or just doing the menu like before, hold Command or Control, scale it down, drag it over here, scale it up some. That. Now it'll just stay there the whole time. So that's the easy thing to do. You can also go to the beginning by using Command or Control left and right to do the same thing. And so that's the ticket. Then Command or Control R to get out of the editing mode. Now we have something on top. Another thing you may want to do, which is very similar in concept to this, is to add either like a title with text on it or subtitles. To do that, it's a little confusing the first time, but you just need to know you come up here to the title menu, which may be just under this bar if you're on Windows, or on the very top if you're on Mac like I am. Now there's a thing called animated title. I don't recommend you use these because they are quite slow to work with. You also would need an extra free software installed called Blender. So I can maybe do something on that later, but for now I just don't do this at all. Go straight to the title. You can also use Command or Control T to do this. What it offers you is a bunch of pre-designed title, like, I don't know, animation, not necessarily animation, but title text that you can choose from. I recommend this bar 3 is a good one for just basic subtitles. This one here, camera border, is pretty good for a main title, but you can play around with it as you like. So let's do this one. So the file name is just the thing that goes up here. This is going to be one of your project files when you're done. So this is only for you to help you know what it is, but I'll just call it, example subtitle. And then this line 1 is actually the text that you'll be there. So I'll do hello world. So hello world from OpenShot, and then you can change the design of this text by using change font if you want, and it gives you a bunch of options, whatever font you have on your system. So I don't know, Helvetica 14 maybe. Sounds good. You can change the color, the background. Advanced Editor, you actually need some other software installed. It's a little advanced for this tutorial, so I don't recommend you use that. But anyway, let's say this is good. We'll hit save. What it's going to do is make a new option up here in the project file. So if you did go to transitions or effects, you'll need to click project files to go find it, drag it down, and then now we have a subtitle. So give it a second to render that. So there's our subtitle. Bam. Okay, so by default, it jumps in and out like it normally does when you don't choose anything else. So I'm going to do fade entire clip fast. That'll be nicer. And then we can see the effect. Come on, you can do it. All right, it's coming in. Perfect, there we go. So it fades in and out. Now, one thing you might want to do is, okay, I want it up for longer. You can just click and drag these, and you can make these as long as you want. Now, because we did have a fade in there already, you want to get rid of the fade because it'll fade out still where it was before. So no fade. And then if you want to put a fade back in, we can do that. Fortunately, things are getting a little bogged down just because I have so much recording going on at the same time. But let's go back to fade entire clip. Fasting. So now the fade's back. So I have subtitles. So if you have multiple subtitles you want to put down, you would just do that again and again. Now let's do another quick example. Let's say we want to do a title. So my title. Call this title. And I don't know, make it same font, but like way bigger. Save. Now we could put the title on top like you normally would. See if we can see what that looks like. And so that's all right. But a lot of times you might actually want to put the title here at the beginning. Now, unfortunately, we already have stuff in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is zoom out just a little bit. There you go. And you can click off to the side and drag this box and select a ton of stuff at the same time. Actually, let's just drag the video part and get all the video. And we can move this over to there to match up with that. So now there's nothing behind this title. And if we look at it here, let it do its update. There we go. So now it's just a black screen behind the title, which I usually prefer. You could also, if you want to just pull the title down here, but it doesn't matter. As long as there's nothing behind this on the timeline that's a video, you will get blackness there. So now, because I've increased the length, I'll want to drag this audio over. And if I had a fade, I'll go to no fade and then go to entire clip and out. Of course, you don't want to fade audio. That was silly. What we actually want is volume, entire clip out. Let's do slow. There we go. So now we have the fade in and out audio again. We've got our title and we've got our subtitles. We've got our overlaid image. That's pretty much all there is to it. You have multiple tracks and you can put, if you put your main one in 3, then you can have 2 layers of overlay pretty easily. And then you can have your background music and you can also have sound effects if you want to put sound effects in. So that's generally the way that you would handle this. And I think that that is the majority of what we want to handle. Now, if you did want some fancy transitions, most of the time I don't recommend using these because they're a little bit too much, but occasionally you might want to wipe. So one thing you could do is instead of this plain one, if I can get this over here, where it's just a plain fade between the two, let's say we want to wipe from the bottom. So what we would do is just drag that on top of this, get rid of the smaller one that was the one we inserted automatically, just the fade, and then make this the right length. So now if I can get this to pre-render that segment, now you can see it's going quite slow, but it's fading up from the bottom. So it gives it a bit of a different effect. See if we can try another one that's more obvious. How about this one? This one's crazy. the form. So let's drag it over the overlapped region. If you make it bigger than the overlapped region, you'll actually get blackness in the transform, which may be what you want, but has quite a different effect. Usually you just want to keep it over 2 overlaid images. All right, so that was pretty funky. Let's go and see if we can play the whole thing at full speed. Okay, so we got some kind of like psychedelic fading out. So that's an option. Like I said, I don't recommend that generally. The ones at the top row here are probably the only ones you would ever really consider unless you're doing kind of a fun project. Or just the default one that you get when you drag them over top of each other is the fade, which is usually the way you want to go. So last little bit here is effects. And so some of these are actually helpful. The biggest ones that you are more likely to use are brightness and contrast. So to do these, you just drag and drop them and you put them on top of your file. So it's a little difficult to see because of the transition here, but I put a little B here, which indicates that there is an effect. But let's maybe edit, let's do this one instead so you can see a little bit easier. So let's drag and drop this brightness and contrast over there. Did I get it? So now we have a brightness and contrast adjustment, but it didn't really do anything. So if we click on the B here, another window. There we go. So I just right-clicked and chose properties. Now that this window is up, I generally would leave it there because now you can edit all the different. So let's say we clicked on this one. There isn't an effect, so it just has the main video settings. Now most of these I would not mess with unless you know exactly what you're doing because they can get a little complex. But if we go back to here on this clip and go click the drop down and go to brightness and contrast, now we can edit that. So let's say this video is too dark, which it definitely is. We can just click here and drag it up. And now it's a little brighter. Now this video is not great, so it's never going to look super good, but at least we can make it a little brighter and maybe pull the contrast up again. Something like that. I don't know if that's better, but this is a great way to do small adjustments on your video. I'm not sure what I was going to say there, but it does help in some cases when you have video that's slightly too dark or slightly too light. You can pull it in and out using the brightness and contrast. One thing to watch out for is the same issue that we had with the transform before. So it actually added a animation keyframe here, and maybe I can show you. I don't know if it's super clear, but it's actually animating the brightness up. Let's go back to this spot and go crazy with the brightness. And so now if we go back to the beginning, oh, it didn't animate it. Oh, there it is. So it actually just did a straight change, which is a little bit unusual, not what I expected. But the key point to note is that just like transitions, it will only do it at certain spots along this video. So you can animate between the two. So let's say we had like a really dark one here. It should animate between the dark and the light. So in this case, it just did a quick transition, and now it's animating to the darker one as we go along. So the darker keyframe here, the lighter one is there. Oh, I see, I made 2 keyframes, that's why. But overall, unless you know you specifically want to do this, you just don't want to accidentally do that type of animation. So what you can do is just no animation again, and that gets rid of all the keyframes here. And then like before, you want to click this to go over, select that and click that to go to the very beginning. And I still didn't get rid of. Yeah, there's no easy way to get rid of all the keyframes on this one. Seems like. Actually, what I'm going to do is just Control Z all the way back before I made any changes. There we go. So all the keyframes are gone. That's the easiest way that I found. You can actually go to each keyframe and delete them manually, but if you find yourself making a mistake, I would just Control Z back and then use our arrow over here or Control left arrow to get to the very beginning. And now we can go in and edit our brightness and contrast. So I went to before I even put the filter there. So we'll go click on this again. There's our brightness and contrast. Now we can adjust it by dragging this up, dragging that a little up. And if we go farther in, you'll notice there wasn't any changing that happened. So a little bit of catch-22. That's why I don't introduce these right at the beginning, but it's can be very helpful once you learn the right way to edit these. Another one that we might want to mess with is, well, blur can be helpful. It just blurs things out. Sometimes it's a little too pixelated in certain places, so it can be nice to put a very soft blur. Also, color and saturation can be helpful. So now we can see there's actually two, and if we click on, B is for the brightness and contrast, S is for color and saturation. So if we can, you can switch between them that way, which is convenient, and then we can just drag this up and saturate the colors a little bit. And a lot of times you're going to want to actually do this. A lot of video cameras produce video that's a little desaturated, and people on the internet tend to like a little more saturated video. So this might be a little extreme, but it does look nicer. And now the only other one that I could see you wanting to use on a regular basis is potentially the Chroma Key. So unfortunately, I don't think this will work on this one. This Chroma Key is for taking out green screen. Oh, well, actually, I've got enough whiteness, I probably can. So if we click key color, and then choose the color of the screen behind you, which normally it would be green, but because it's white, I think I can do that. One other option, I believe, is to I didn't do what I thought it was. I was hoping there's a way to actually just choose it from the screen. But unfortunately, I don't think that software has it, so you kind of have to do it by eye. Now, if you did have a green screen, it would be way up here like this. That's what you'd be looking for. For this whiteboard, let's see if we can get rid of it using this. So something like that. So it is pulling some of it out there. Not very helpful though. So I'm actually going to use this little utility that I have. This actually lets you find color values. So the screen behind me is actually not white. It looks a little bluish. So 202, 235, 235 is what it is. So let's see if we can go here. 2, 5, 5. So we're getting some. It's quite noisy back there. So I'm going to pull up the fuzz a bit. Yeah, so it didn't work great with this, but you can see the idea behind how you would mess with this. You would choose the right color here. Maybe I can make it a little brighter. And I got some, and then you choose the fuzz and go try to get as much of it out as you can. If you had a nice green screen setup, this should probably work. It's not the best green screener I've ever seen, but it's good enough to get you there most of the time. So just as an example, if we put this behind you, say down here, and we can see it through the green screening, that. So you could put a background behind you there. And so that's what that's for. So I think that is the majority of things you'd want to do with this software. And you could really get a lot done. Now, unfortunately, it tends to get pretty slow if you do a lot of these different transitions and a lot of different clips and filters and all that stuff. So you kind of want to be minimal with it. And one possible thing that you can do is, let's say you do a chunk of this and you're doing like an hour-long video or 20-minute long video sometimes, and it's just really not working out well, it's getting slow and chugging down, what you can do is just take the first half of that, edit that the way you want, export it like we did, and then do a new project. I guess we'll save this, test. All right, so now we got a brand new one. Edit it the second half the way that you want, export that too, and then what we could do is take the exported project. So like this is the one we exported at the beginning of this tutorial. Pull that in here and then connect them together and essentially do it in two parts. So if you had the first half here and the second half here, then you can export this all as one video separately. So you, instead of doing one edit, you end up doing two separate edits and then a third to put them together. It's not ideal, but it is a way that you can get it done with this software, which is great software because it's pretty easy to use and it's available for free on every platform, and it does work on relatively slow computers. So this is a great way to get started, and hopefully you'll get a lot of use out of this before maybe moving on to some more advanced and more powerful software in the future.